What deck should I play in OP04? Tier list time. Hi, Casual Raccoon here, and today we'll create prediction tier list for OP04 META. In this video, I'm not going to rate all the leaders, as I believe that assigning a random letter to every one of them isn't informative and would be waste of our time. I will focus on evaluating leaders that will be meta. So this list mostly consists of the leaders that I think will be popular and are expected to show up in large numbers in tournaments. But before we start, let me know in the comments what deck are you going to play in this expansion. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Tier S. I strongly believe that overall meta in One Piece card game is quite balanced. I didn't notice any deck overwhelmingly oppressive during OP04 in Asia. Until now, the only deck that was true S tier was Whitebeard before Moby Dick ban. Bandai had to take immediate action and ban Moby Dick on OP03 release day for Western players. I don't see any deck from the current game state on similar power level to single-handedly take over the meta in OP04. Tier A. In this tier we have decks that will probably see the most in big tournaments, and for the simple reason, they are just too strong. Those decks are well known already from OP03. Big 4, Red Zoro, Red Green Law, Red Whitebeard and Yellow Katakuri. New addition here is OP04 leader Blue Black Rebecca. As you can see, I divided them into groups to better explain why they are here. Each group has a category as follows: sailing, consistency and control. Red Zoro and Red Green Law. Two leaders with simple and very strong effects. Additionally, they have access to the cards from the strongest color in the game, red. It allows players to build decks in a way to adjust to any meta. Because of that, those decks have the highest sailing. You might ask, what is the difference between sailing and consistency? Aren't those leaders consistent? To put it simply, because there are so many more options to build these leaders and so many more choices to make through the game than with other decks. Additionally, they utilize many different searchers that can whiff due to variance or left you with a bunch of bricks in your hand. If you play one of those leaders, you must be prepared to adjust your gameplay on the fly and make correct choices based on matchup knowledge, as one small decision can turn against you quickly. Nonetheless, if you prepare yourself correctly and build your deck according to the expected meta, you will be unstoppable to the point that games seem just unfair against other decks. With such high skill expression and possibilities those decks provide, you can flex on your opponents with your big brain plays, and if you never miss a searcher, infinite hand size of value. Red Edward Newgate and Yellow Katakuri. Those two decks are definition of consistency. Both have strong curve independent of going first or second. They can drop strong characters on curve and threaten the board every turn. Their searchers are almost impossible to whiff and can search for boss monsters included in a decks. Whitebeard, even though restrictions are staying, proven himself already in OP03 as Mr. Consistent, and it doesn't seem to change anytime soon, especially in the West where we just can't play against him properly. Katakuri, however, was lacking something and Christmas couldn't come any faster. In OP04, Yellow received a lot of gifts, most notably Capone Gang Veggie, 2k counter with amazing trigger preventing one of your opponent's leader or character from attacking this turn. Porco Sanji, 5k power blocker that you can play from trigger. Charlotte Amanda, another searchable 2k counter and niche ability that can help you versus Zoro and Law. Randolph and Perospero Vanillas, searchable beatsticks to fill out your curve. 9-cost Yamato, boss monster that you can play on curve going first. Amazing utility. If you or your opponent are healthy, works as big body removal. If you are on 1 life or lower, however, additional 1 life heal on play. As you can see, Katakuri received huge consistency boost in OP04. Can go first or second, so dice roll is irrelevant. Can play passively, starving opponent and playing towards chaining 10-cost Big Mom. Have easy time fighting for board with high power characters that are also easy to defend. And occasional triggers will trigger your opponent, especially if you put them back in life with your 8-cost Katakuri. To sum up those two decks, they are basically Jimmy decks that require your opponent to draw better than you and still their victory isn't certain. Breaking with those decks is almost impossible and you always have something to play on curve, making them the most consistent decks in OP04. Blue-Black Rebecca, Queen of Control, new addition to the game in OP04. First leader that can't attack that is playable. In my opinion, the best new leader in OP04. First real control deck, and creating a control leader in a game with guaranteed mana resource and leaders that are always on board and can attack every turn is not an easy task. And yet, Bandai managed to create Rebecca that is everything that control player can wish for. She can't attack, what is a plus, because they make it so resting her complements character's effect in the deck. Additionally, her own effect is just amazing. You can draw a card and trash another to fill up your trash for your combo 7 cost Luffy and King Kong Gun. It's a reactive deck that rewards player for correct planning and smart resource management. I will go more into detail in Rebecca's deck profile video. In short, if you are tired of losing to red or played control decks in other card games, this is a leader for you. To sum up tier A, we can notice something important here. Top tier decks are good against each other in a rock, paper, scissors manner. On average, red decks should win against Katakuri, Katakuri should win against Rebecca, and Rebecca should win against red. Obviously, there is still variance in card games and best of one format is full of surprises and upset wins or losses, but it's a topic for another video. Tier B. In this tier, I predict the following decks: Nami, Blue Crocodile, Green Purple Doffy, and Blue Yellow Queen. I also divided them into categories: Solitaire, Best Removal in Format, and Gimmick. Nami. I don't expect high numbers of this deck in tournaments. I place Nami in B tier only as a benchmark/gatekeeper. Single player deck, playing with itself, but it's a perfect check for the decks if they are good enough to climb to higher tiers, hence gatekeeper deck. Also amazing deck to check your game basics playing against. Other than that, unless you open your hand perfectly or trigger like crazy, I don't expect you to top with Nami in 7+ rounds tournaments. Blue Crocodile. In my opinion, black horse of the format. In current game state, blue has access to the best removal cards. If you like disrupting your opponents with a little help from Lady Luck, you should be able to compete with the best decks. Only thing to note here is, as with every B tier deck, it takes a lot of effort and planning to optimize it to the meta and expected game style. Green Purple Doffy and Blue Yellow Queen. I call them gimmick decks, because once you know how to play around them or what to expect, they shouldn't pose a lot of threat. They are in B tier because they have good matchups against at least one deck in A tier, but they lack consistency or sailing that tier A decks present. Most Doffy builds we will see in meta should be with Film Package, as it's more consistent. However, Boss Monster isn't searchable, so we rely purely on a chance to draw it by turn 5. Queen, on another hand, might be annoying to play against unless you realize that 4 is a magic number. As long as you prepare yourself for this matchup, there should be no issues. However, if you want to play Queen, you might as well consider to just play Katakuri and save yourself and your opponent some time. To sum up B tier decks, they are solid choices that we might see in higher numbers in tournaments, especially new leaders, Doffy and Queen. However, keep in mind that the deck you choose for high level competition should be as consistent as possible unless you dodge all your bad matchups. Optimizing B tier decks and playing them optimally is much harder than A tier decks. It might not be worth your time and effort if you just want to win. As I stated at the start of the video, I'm not going to rate other leaders, as I strongly believe that assigning tiers to niche leaders isn't needed. If you put a lot of time and effort, any deck can win. But playing top tier deck allows you to improve your fundamentals better, as you don't need to spend time and effort to optimize a deck to the current meta. However, if you find joy in tweaking off-meta decks to fight top-tier leaders and your basics understandings are good enough, by all means do it. OP04 META is in classic rock, paper, scissors state. If you pick correct top tier deck, with a little luck you can top an event based solely on a matchups. However, you shouldn't give up if you get paired with leader that counters yours, as any game is winnable and you can skill gap your opponent. If you don't want to miss content like that in the future, subscribe to the channel. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Take it easy.